last couple of nights. It is only about 8:30 Eastern time right now. We finished up the day. We started at 1 o'clock again today. And today was really the day to be able to make the decision. Do we need additional witnesses? Do we need additional evidence other than the evidence that we've already heard so far in the last 2 weeks of the trial? That decision was made by the Senate tonight. It was determined that no, we do not need additional witnesses. We do not need additional evidence. And so then that moves us to the final phase of actually making a decision. I'm one of those folks that voted tonight to say, I don't believe that we need additional witnesses. We don't need additional testimony. We have what we need at this point to be able to go through it. It's one of those things we started to be able to look at and determine how much we really do already have in the process and all the different evidence. 192 different video clips we've gone through with different individuals. 13 witnesses have done testimony with us by video through that. 28,000 pages of documents that we've gone through of evidence. We've heard from David Holmes from the State Department, Fiona Hill, White House advisor for the National Security Council, David Hale, Undersecretary for Political Affairs at the State Department, Laura Cooper, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Gordon Sondland, the U.S. Ambassador to the EU, Tim Morrison, former White House advisor, Kurt Volker, the former U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who's in the National Security Council, Jennifer Williams, who's the aide to the Vice President, Marie Yovanovitch, which is former ambassador to the Ukraine, George Kent, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, Bill Taylor, who is a U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, as well as a whole bunch of others that we've actually gone through as well. That's who we've just gone through just in witnesses in the last couple of weeks. So today was determining, do we need more? The House team came and presented their side, spent about 2 hours making their case that they want to get John Bolton, they wanted Mick Mulvaney. They said initially they wanted just 4 people and listed that 4. And then towards the end, they came back and said, and that's just the beginning, we want a whole lot more. And then they stepped in after that and said, after that 4 folks, and then a whole lot more after that they want to be able to keep going with, they start talking about the documents that they want to get. They want to get certain documents from the White House, from the State Department, from the Department of Defense, from the Office of Management and Budget. They continue to say over and over again, we can do all this in a week. Now, there's no way to be able to do all of that in a week, but they kept repeating it over and over again like it's true. But there's absolutely no way to be able to gather thousands of documents from 4 different sets of agencies, not just agencies, but sets of agencies, and to be able to do all of those witnesses and to be able to go through deposition. You can't get them ordered, structured, do the depositions. They kept saying in the Clinton trial, they got all the depositions done in a week. We can do it all in a week. The difference was in the Clinton trial, all of those individuals, and there were just 3 that the Senate called, those were witnesses that had already come through the House process. They'd been part of the grand jury from the House, or had been part of the impeachment inquiry in the House. So the grand jury, that's that special counsel that came up with Ken Starr during that time period. All those folks had already been deposed. They had already gone through the process. They had already gone through executive authority. All the documents were gathered. Everything was done. It was fast in the Clinton time period because they had already gone through the House at this point. What the House is looking for now is dramatically different, saying these are entirely new people. They came in and said, we've interviewed a bunch of folks. We have depositions from a bunch of folks. We have a bunch of documents already, a lot of emails, a lot of text messages, those things they brought up. But they said, we want to go fish for more and to be able to gather it. And the decision today was, no, we're not going to fish for more. We're able to answer the question that you've actually raised in this. And so, again, that vote happened late tonight. So the House went through its time. The White House went through its time trying to be able to lay out what are some of the key aspects of this whole process and talking about some of not only the constitutional issues, but some of the fact-based issues. And then we had multiple breaks while there was some negotiation. Now, what we had planned to do is to say we need to, once the decision is made on witnesses, if that decision goes the direction it went, which is a 51-49 vote, to be able to say we don't want additional witnesses and testimony, then we can move to closing arguments tomorrow morning and to be able to have the final decision by tomorrow afternoon. Senator Schumer stepped in and said that he had lined up 47 different motions that he wanted to be able to make at the end, and he started lining that up. And then he had a whole series of additional motions that he wanted to do after that. The time on those 47 motions, and he was very clear, he was going to hold everybody here all night Friday night, all day on Saturday, and then stretch that into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Senator Schumer made it very, very clear his goal is for the final vote on acquittal or guilty of the President of the United States to be after the State of the Union. And so there was all the breaks that you saw during the course of the day was negotiations on how to be able to do this and what this was going to be in the order of all these motions, and everybody's going to be held up. Obviously, all the members were pretty frustrated by that, but Senator Schumer kept saying, I do not want to have a vote on acquittal or on guilt until after the State of the Union. He wanted to stretch it on out. The folks that were the Iowa candidates, that are presidential candidates, that needed to be able to leave out and go campaign in Iowa this weekend before the Iowa caucuses that are next week, they were mad about it. We were all upset about it to be able to go through the process on it, say we're fine to be able to stay, but this is all just things to be able to slow down the process and to be able to grind everything up. It was finally an agreement that was made to say, okay, we won't meet tomorrow. We'll actually have final closing arguments on Monday. So Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, that's 10 a.m. center of the world and Central time in Oklahoma, but at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Monday, we'll have the final closing arguments from the House and from the White House. That'll go from 11 to 3 on Monday. And then before and after that, senators can speak about what their thoughts are about the whole impeachment process Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but we won't have the final vote on a verdict until Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern time. All of that was to suit Senator Schumer, who was fighting through all this process to delay it. It was one more reminder to me that most of this impeachment was not about facts, was not about justice. It really was about politics. And they were in the process of trying to stretch out as much as they can, just like they're doing right now, to say we don't want a decision before the State of the Union. We want to base it after the State of the Union because it's about a political outcome more than it is a fact-based outcome. And that's really frustrating. From the beginning, this has been a very partisan process. When it came over into the Senate, I picked up all the documents. I have an oath to be able to look through these things and to be able to determine where are things, where are the facts. If the facts lead towards guilt, then that's where I have to be able to go through it. But the more that I went through all these different facts and details over and over and over again, I found this was a political accusation or a story that was spun, that the facts behind it just don't line up with that. So that's a frustration. It is what it is in Washington, D.C., that often there's a lot of political grandstanding like this, but it will have that once again. So if you have folks say, why is it so many days? We have 5 days to be able to stall this out before we can get to the final part. It's because Senator Schumer fought so hard to be able to make sure the verdict wasn't until after the State of the Union. State of the Union is next Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock in Oklahoma. Would encourage folks to be able to watch that, obviously, be able to get just perspective on where things are, as I do every year with both presidents that I've served with, President Obama and with President Trump. I encourage people to be able to watch the State of the Union. I think it's an important address to the nation to be able to get a feel of what's happening. But in the meantime, there are no impeachment activities in the Senate on Saturday or Sunday. Monday, we begin again at 11 o'clock Eastern time. So look forward to trying to keep you up to date. Again, if you have questions, we're not going to have all the phones active this weekend because staff's not here over the weekend at this point because we're not dealing with impeachment. Feel free to be able to call us on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day it may be. You can go to langford.senate.gov, get all the details on that, or at Senator Langford on all the social media platforms, and free to be able to call us as well. All that information is at langford.senate.gov, all the phone numbers or email addresses to be able to reach us from there. So hopefully this has been helpful. Again, just to give you a quick recap of the day and some of the drama behind the scenes as we go through it. One interesting little side note that was this evening, we had multiple different motions towards the end of the night that were just some different motions that Senator Schumer brought up. At the beginning of those motions, he actually challenged the Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts. He challenged him and stated a parliamentary inquiry that if there's a tie vote, 50-50 in the Senate, what does that mean? And he basically said, are you aware that in 1868, in a impeachment for President Johnson, there were some tie votes? The Chief Justice responded back to Senator Schumer and said he was aware there were 2 tie votes where the Chief Justice actually voted in those, but they were a motion to adjourn or a motion on a question, and he said he did not consider those to be a precedent setting for that Chief Justice to do that in 1868 and for 150 years ago, for that to be the precedent that he would follow. And he said he is from a different branch of government, from the third branch of government, the judiciary, and the Constitution is very clear that the Senate is the one who actually makes decisions. And so if there is a tie-breaking vote, the tie goes to no on that, and that sets a brand new judicial precedent. Now, for a lot of people, it's no big deal, but for those of us that have wondered for a while all the way through this process, what happens with a tie vote? It not only declares that for the first time, but it also sets a new precedent for the generations to come if they ever get back into this spot. And quite frankly, I hope as a nation we never get back to a spot like this again, where we are in a very divisive, very politically charged impeachment process. It's bad for the nation. It's certainly bad for Congress and us trying to be able to get things done and get things accomplished. But what we saw in the impeachment during the Nixon time period, where it was 410 votes to 4 in the House and was a very bipartisan understanding of what was going on, we just don't have that at this point. Clearly did not have that in 1999 with Bill Clinton. That was a very partisan experience as well. And I hope as a country, we can work through these impeachment process and get out of this age of impeachment and age of investigations and try to be able to get back to how do we solve these problems together, knowing that if we solve it as a partisan, it just makes everybody dig in and gets everybody in their corners, but we got to be able to solve the hard things together. So that's kind of the report for the evening. Pray you have a good weekend. Enjoy watching the Super Bowl.